Ankin Ma'at. Welcome to Kemetic Ascension for April 3rd, 2026. Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at. Welcome. Oh boy, that is. There we go. Hopefully you didn't hear feedback. Ankin Ma'at. Welcome to Kemetic Ascension for April 3rd, 2026. I'm so pleased that you are here with us. I know that there are other things that you could be doing, particularly on a day that I assume that many of your family members are probably celebrating Easter. And so I want to say I'm so honored that you're here with us for Kemetic Ascension. I know that I must admit, I am working on about 4 hours of sleep. It's been a little bit of a hectic period. But definitely I'm looking forward to be here with you for Easter. I promise I will try not to be here that long. You usually laugh when I say I'm not going to be long-winded, but I get it. I'm hoping that you will not be here that long, just because I know there are other things that you're going to do today. But I did think it was amazing for us to get together and discuss the day. If your family is anything like mine, you will be celebrating in some form or fashion with them. I'm not going to be, obviously, in a Christian church celebrating Easter. That is not my tradition. However, my family then usually gathers for a meal afterwards. And I made the decision many years ago that whenever my family gathers, I will be there, regardless of what they are gathering for. I learned that it was not wise, not in Ma'at, for me to beat up the people who love me, even if they are not able to see what I am able to see. They have not had the experience that I have had, the experiences I have had. They've not done the study I've done. And so I want to be respectful of them, while also recognizing that all of these traditions have an origin. And those origins come from ancient Kem. They come from our tradition. So today, as I have done on other days that we have been so close to Easter, today is wonderful because we have fallen on one of the Christian Easter days. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So let me go ahead and say welcome to all of you. I see so many of you that are here already. Good morning, and Ankin Ma'at to Black Magic Mike, coming to us from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ankin Ma'at to our full member, Sinette Tone, who is saying she wants to study to become a priestess of the Wenwet. That is something that we will be doing as soon as my schedule becomes a little bit clearer. You'll hear more about it in the coming weeks. About some of the things I've been up to in my personal life, but you will hear more about that. It's one of the reasons why my calendar has been so crazy. But I will share that in due time. And some of you who know me, who are perhaps closer to me as an individual, may know about some of what I'm referring to. But I'll share it with the entire Shrine community when my process is a bit further along. Let me say Ankin Ma'at to Sanet Shenka, an active, very active member of the Shrine. Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at to Johnny Johnson, coming to us from El Paso, Texas. Juarez, Mexico. Wonderful, wonderful. That's pretty far away. I think that may be further than Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I think you may be the furthest person away right now. Ankin Ma'at to our dear sister. Yes, that's Benita Sutton. How are you? It's good to see you there. Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Sen Nahisi, one of our full members, coming to us from Florida, I believe. Ankin Ma'at to Sen Jehuti Ma'at Ra, who is another one of our full members, coming to us from Canada. Ankin Ma'at to send Jason Holmes, another full member coming to us from Lincoln, Nebraska. Ankin Ma'at to you. It's always good to see all of these members who are very active and are important parts of the Shrine of Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Mr. Rashad, who comes to us from Southern California. Ankin Ma'at to you. It's good to see you here, Mr. Rashad. Ankin Ma'at to Curtis Penn. I think that might be Sen Curtis under another handle. Maybe that's you, Sen Curtis, coming to us from Painesville, Ohio. One of our full members, Ankin Ma'at to you. I'm thinking that might be you. I see Black Magic Mike says that Easter is not a mythology you recognize anymore. I hear that. I really do. I want us to be comfortable allowing people to do that while perhaps helping them understand the larger context of the day. I know that when I was a younger man, I spent a lot of time beating up my parents, beating up my siblings, beating up my cousins, beating up my aunts and uncles. When they would gather for Easter or gather for Thanksgiving or gather for those days, I'd beat them up. And in hindsight, as a much older man, I don't think that was the right way to do it. It was correct for me to clarify to them that I didn't think we should be celebrating these things. That was enough. I also think it was enough for me, as I learned more, as I did more study, to try to explain to them what the origin of these things were. But on the same token, doing it in a way that's loving and not chastising is something that I got to learn as an older person, as someone who's a little more seasoned and perhaps not with as many sharp barbs as I used to have in those days. So I'm really hoping that those of you who are with your family will allow them to do what they do, but hoping that you'll give them enough information so that one day they will recognize that we should all, as people of African descent, return to African traditions. That so much of what we experience, even in 2026, are those traditions, those customs that were forced on our recent ancestors as they were forced to bear the lash and to wear chains. That's where so much of this comes from. On the same token, they also use those traditions to free themselves from their chains. They use those things that were forced upon them in a manner very different than what their enslavers anticipated. So we should respect all of these things while still recognizing that you and I hear the echo of the voices of our ancient African ancestors who gave so much to the world and today are denied. That is something that ought to change. So we will do that. Ankin Ma'at to Sanet Willanette. Afua Ma'ati Robin, I'm seeing you're there, still moving between those locations. I know you're relocating soon. I hope all is going well with your relocation. I hope you are doing well. Ankin Ma'at to Abut Sashad, who is here under Shrine of Sekhmet. One of the priests of the Shrine of Ma'at. Wonderful. It's wonderful to see you here. And there is Sanet Adenike. I have not seen you in a little while. How are you, Sanet? How are you? One of our full members coming to us from Rwanda. She is the furthest away. Ankin Ma'at to you. I hope you are doing well in the belly of our motherland of Africa. I know that you are likely doing well because I know what you're like, and you're over there doing work. I know you are. So Ankin Ma'at to you for being there and doing well. I see PB Re 99, and I believe that is, I think that is our dear Sanet coming. You and I have still not connected. It's not on your fault. It's on mine. I've been all over the place. And I know you're probably trying to call about the gathering you all are planning this year in Detroit. Can we talk immediately after Kemetic Ascension? I won't have a lot of time because I'm going to be taking my mother to my sister, but maybe we can talk briefly immediately after. That might be very helpful for that to happen. I think that's what we should be doing. That's Sinet Cochier, I believe that is. Ankh Ma'at to you. Ankh Ma'at to Kevin Simmons. Good afternoon, family. Peace, Brother Jabari. Ankh Ma'at to you. Ankh Ma'at to Sinet Cortia. Ankh Ma'at coming to us from the ATL. No, there goes Sen Curtis. So maybe the other person was not Sen Curtis. It could be because I think he was coming to us on YouTube, and this handle is coming to us clearly from Facebook. Ankan Ma'at to you, one of our full and active members. Ankan Ma'at. Ankan Ma'at to Taekwon Coben, coming to us from Flint, Michigan. Ankan Ma'at to you. Man are the living Ankh. Johnny Johnson says, just put your hands over your head in a circle, then extend your hands to your side like a jumping jack. Certainly there are ways in which we attempt to replicate these symbols, because I believe our ancestors did exactly that. And so often when we do those things, we call it Aryanka. Sometimes it's called Kemetic yoga, because yoga is a much more familiar term. We have some practitioners of Kemetic yoga here. I know Abut Sashat is one of them. And so, yes, I would agree with you that there are ways for us to embody these symbols. Ankan Ma'at, Ankan Ma'at. Ankan Ma'at to Sen M, that under their Sid Nick Productions. Ankan Ma'at to you. It's good to know that you're there. I'm glad you're there. I see Sinet Cortia is on here on Facebook too. Ankan Ma'at. Ankan Ma'at to CM Cooper from North Carolina. Ankan Ma'at to Perry Ellis. Ankan Ma'at, one of our full members. Ankan Ma'at to you. These lying ass pastors should be chastised and called out. They know better. Listen, I get your energy. That is Abut Sashat's energy, those of you who know her. And I think that if there is someone who should be chastised, it is those people who have done the study and continue to mislead our people. Agreed. Not your family, not your parents, not your siblings, but those people who have learned more and continue to assist with our people being stuck in traditions that were forced upon them. It is time for us to chastise them, some of them lovingly and some of them less lovingly. Can describe it that way? Maybe that's a good way to put it, but definitely I see Sen Nahisi says, yes, that comes with time and experience as a teacher. Yes, we have to also continue to find ways not to just beat people up. Particularly those people, once again, who love us. I will never forget, some of you have heard this story. My family gathered so many of our family members together at a table for Thanksgiving. My family is not wealthy, so they actually spent considerable amount of money to make that that gathering, that dinner happen. It was hard for us, right? And as soon as my extended family entered the door, I kind of went upstairs. My parents did not see me go upstairs. I had created, it had to be maybe a 3-foot diorama of a slave ship, complete with enslaved Africans on it. I had painted my face red. And as soon as my father and my mother brought the turkey to the table, I slammed it next to there and I said, this is what you're celebrating. You are celebrating the enslavement, the brutality, the torture, and the murder of your ancestors. And you should all be ashamed of yourselves. My father, realizing that I was grandstanding as a young revolutionary, did not think that it was wise to argue with me in the middle of the family. He just said, go upstairs, we'll bring you some food, go upstairs. That's how he handled it. In his wisdom, it was probably wise to do that. While I laugh at that kind of event now, the reality is why. did I beat up the people who loved me, the people who were in my corner, people that celebrated me? They were simply doing what their parents had done and what they had learned. There had to be a better way for me to communicate that message. Have I figured it out entirely as a man in my 50s? I have to say no. I still have not figured it out. But on the same token, I hope that I am less acerbic and more loving to the people that love me, even as I have to tell them some things that might be uncomfortable. So we'll definitely continue to talk about that. Ankin Ma'at to Tanya Smiley, one of our full members. Ankin Ma'at, it's good to see you there, Sinette. Ankin Ma'at to Jojo from Slovenia. Wow, that's pretty far away. Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at to Sinette Cheryl McAdam, Ankin Ma'at, known as Shu Ra'el from the ATL. Ankin Ma'at, it's good to see you here. Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Ronald Garrison. Oh, Kwame Ron, one of the fellow chiefs that were installed along with myself and the former chief priestess of the shrine, Ankin Ma'at in Ghana. Ankin Ma'at to you, dear Kwame Ron. How are you? How is your journey? I know you were in Ghana much more recently than I was, although I am planning to return this summer because I have not been to Ghana in over a year, and I am itching to return to the motherland in that place we know as Ghana, that is a welcoming place to so many diasporan Africans. Hope you're doing well. Ankin Ma'at to Anthony Jones, coming to us from Houston. Ankin Ma'at to Siba Obali. Obali. I'm sure I'm messing up your name. That is Sen Obalafia, one of our full members. Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Sinette Tanya Smiley again, who says Detroit is where she's from. Yes, we're talking. Sinette Coach Ye and others are trying to put together a gathering of shrine members, as they have done so expertly every year. And I believe it's going to be in Detroit. I'm going to talk maybe right after Kemetic Ascension while I'm driving. We'll make a call. Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at to Daz Jadad. I'm sure I am messing that up, and I know who you are, and it's terrible. Oh my goodness. Ankin Ma'at, this is one of the members of the Shrine of Black Gold. We're talking about the elder Baba Mfundishi, who I saw this week. Had a chance to greet him this week. Ankin Ma'at, it was good to see him. And Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at to the Schaefers, that wonderful couple who the Shrine of Ma'at had a wonderful relationship, who extended our wonderful relationship with them, as they are full members of the Shrine, and they assisted us in creating the album. I'm dating myself. I know very well it's not an album, but that's the best way for me to describe it. Our hessi music, that is such a wonderful addition to the work of practitioners. Ankin Ma'at to you. I hope you're doing well. I assume you're still in modern day Egypt in Kemet. I hope things are going well there for you. I'm assuming by now you have relocated from Ghana to Kemet. And I knew very well that once they got a hold of your expertise, your artistry, they were not going to want to let you go, that you were going to find it very easy for you to make a living there, because they need people who are as skilled and as talented as the two of you are. And I'm sure they love you. They just love you. So especially when they're groups. I think you were working on the cruises. There are those groups of tourists that come in, and they have these wonderful cruises on the Hapi, and you hear some artists. Sometimes the music is not that great, I must say. And I knew that once they got you there and they saw the response of the folks there, they were going to want you to stay. I think that's what you're doing. Ankh and Ma'at to you, and I hope that you all are doing well. Um, Relocating has its challenges, yet it's very rewarding. I can imagine. I can imagine. I can only hope that you relocate a little bit closer so that we can see each other in person. Baltimore is closer, obviously, than Atlanta, but Atlanta is closer than LA, so I'll definitely see you in one of those places. Ankit Ma'at to Naima Ra. Ankit Ma'at to you. Ankit Ma'at to Sen I think that's Sen James Limba, one of our full members, Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Sanet Sakina Ra, one of our full and active members. To Jehudi Mess coming to us from Quebec. I don't know. I know if I know that handle. I wonder if you're new. Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at to you. The spring autumn religions are really about the season changes, including season spiritual systems. The way I always describe it to Will and Ned is that so much of what we do today is actually astrotheology. It is studying the divine as above, so below. And some of that message, much of that message has been lost to those people who are practicing the three major traditions today. They'll actually tell you that it is evil, that it is not with God. I will use that term because they do. To read the heavens, to follow the heavens, while they are doing it themselves. More on that later. So we know that we can do this better if we are able to once again use the traditions that our African ancestors brought into the world. The ones who know better need to get all the heat. I'm talking about Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. Smoke for them. I'm not even sure if I know who those people are. Hopefully you'll share that with me. Ankit Ma'at to William Stephen. That is his government name. That's Brother Pimpanzi, who is one of our full members coming to us from Philadelphia. Ankit Ma'at to Glow Life. Please do trips to Kemet again. You would love to see the new museum. My plan is to return to Kemet. I'm just trying to figure out when I should go and trying to also judge and safety based on this war that our country is now in. And so that's where I'm at. But I'm planning to do all of those things soon, I hope. Ankan Ma'at to Auntie Inner. Ankan Ma'at. I see Zep Tepi Slen saying, your thoughts on the situation at Morehouse College concerning O.C. Allen. I am not even aware of what is happening at Morehouse College with O.C. Allen. Please share it with us. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I wish I knew. I see Sinet Abut Sashat asking the same thing as someone who went to school in the region. I'm sure that would be of great interest to her as well. Ankan to Devin. That's Sen Garrick. Oh, Sen Garrick from Arizona. Ankin Ma'at to you and your fam, and especially your queen, one of our full members. He and his wife are full members. Ankin Ma'at to Sullivan Walker and to Ashley Amara. Ankin Ma'at Sanet Ashley. Where are you now? I know you have gotten to the point where you started traveling a lot. Where are you? I hope all is well. Yes, you relocate. The Chafers say that they have relocated to Egypt. I knew that that was going to happen. 4 years. Has it been that long? I guess it has. Yeah, I guess it has. You were in Ghana for 2 years. Yeah, I guess it has. I'd love to know what part of Kemet you are in. And what that has been like living there. Because I will tell you, I do not know many African Americans, Africans from the Americas who have relocated to Kemet, to Egypt. I would love to talk to you more about what that experience has been like. And it really seems like something that we should even do maybe with Shrine members, because it'll be really fascinating to hear what your experiences have been. As I continue to go, I am always there as a visitor for just a few days or sometimes a few weeks. What is it like living there? I'd love to know. Are you in Cairo? Are you in Luxor? Of course, Luxor is where, if I was going to live somewhere, that's where I'd want to live. I'm wondering where you are. Ankanmata Eric Adams, coming to us from North Carolina. No relation to the former mayor of New York City, Ankh Ma'at. Ankh Ma'at to Kamari Jackson. Hate the Bible, miss seeing you. Do I hate the Bible? I wouldn't say I hate the Bible. Good to see you, even, I think you mean though you hate the Bible. I certainly wouldn't say I hate the Bible. That would be an inappropriate way to describe my relationship to that text. Clearly, as someone who was raised Christian, the biblical narrative was of critical importance to me. Those who are practitioners who are still in that particular house were people who assisted me with becoming who I am. I have to say to you, I certainly do not hate the Bible. I think that we have to recognize its origin. We have to recognize how it was put together. We should recognize who put it together, what were their aims, what their motivations were. And having said all that, I still believe that there is wisdom in the Bible. I think that there are also things in the Bible that are quite disturbing. The rampant misogyny in the Bible is a major issue. We're at the cusp of a period where, you know, that Passover was this week as well, where parts of the Bible celebrate the killing of innocents. We see this regularly. There are things that we should be concerned about in the Bible. So that's something that we should discuss. And I think that as intelligent, articulate, conscientious people of African descent, we should be able to do that. And so that is my position. I do not hate the Bible. I read the Bible regularly, even today. Even today, I read the Bible this week for some things I thought were very interesting. Have you heard me critique the Bible publicly? Absolutely. Will you hear me do that more? Absolutely. And perhaps I do that even more than you might expect. And maybe this is where you got the impression that I hate the Bible, because I think that so much of what has been presented in the Bible is done so uncritically, without any analysis, presented as history, presented as the blueprint for all humans on the planet Earth and all of human civilization. I think that all of those are problems. And so that's how I feel about that, to be very clear. And I would love to talk more about it. Absolutely. Ankh Ma'at, if I hated the Bible, I'd have a real problem with my family members who are still Bible based, who are still Christians. I would really have a problem with them. And I would not be spending some time on that celebration that they recognize, Easter, with them, if they were doing this from a text that I hate. Hate is such an inappropriate word. Ankh Ma'at to G Sup. Writing out and breaking out Open the Way as a study guide. Wonderful. I would love to hear that. See what you've written, Sinette Tone. Ankh Ma'at to Anjay Bryant. Ankh Ma'at to you. Always here. Ankh Ma'at. Ankh Ma'at. Black Magic Mike says, boo, the Bible. I'm sure he's saying that partially in jest. But there are lots of things we should be concerned about. There's lots of things we should be concerned about. Good people, genuine people, ignore those sections and say, well, those were written a long time ago. And I think that that's an appropriate way to look at it. But on the same token, when are we going to say that there's some sections of it that we should have concerns about? I think that we should look at that and have those conversations. Ankh Ma'at to Johnny Parker, coming to us from Brick City, Newark. Ankh Ma'at. Black Magic Mike notices my hang drum in the background. Yes, I'm learning, and eventually you'll hear me utilizing it. It is in the background. I love its tonality, and so I'm learning considerably, and I'll be using it in spiritual settings quite a bit, hopefully, in a short time. I see the Schaefer's are 3 hours from Luxor in Hurghada. I have never been to Hurghada. Although the folks that have managed my trips to Kemet over the years have always said you got to get to Hurghada. And we haven't been there yet. And I know it's built for tourism. I know that the modern people go there for their vacations. I really would love to see what that's like, and it'd be wonderful. Ankin Ma'at to send Gavin, who is here as Kamisha, 6492. Ankin Ma'at, one of our active members, coming in from the DMV. I see Anthony Jones is saying, hey, Abut Sashad, are you going to do some more Tuesday talks? We'll see if she wants to. It's up to her. It's always up to her. Ankin Ma'at to the metaphysics of Passover and Beta Israel Ethiopian Jews. I don't know if I would approach it from a metaphysical perspective, but perhaps from understanding it as literature rather than history is the way I would look at it, which is important. So, okay, what's the best book to introduce you to Kemet? I wish I could say there's one. There are many books, and I would suggest that you have a library. There is no one book. Of course, you're going to need the book that we call the Pert Emheru, the Book of Coming Forth Today from Night. And there are several different translations of it. There are some that are illustrated that have lots of the images. We're going to be talking a bit about this one today as well. Even though I have many different copies, this one I also love because it has all of the plates, all of the illustrations for the Papyrus of Anui, or Ani as he is often called. So that's one thing that you're going to need to get. And there are many others. When I was younger, I would always give people Medunetter 1 by Raul Nefer Amen of the Soraset Society. But there's several things that you should read. And I would suggest that that's kind of the thing that you should do. And you should also recognize, are you trying to be introduced from a historical perspective or from a practitioner's perspective? And that is another part of what will decide what you should read. Ankin Ma'at to King Burner to Blissfully Evolving. I think Blissfully Evolving, oh, that's Annette Cheryl. Ankin Ma'at to you. Let's see, I'm going to try to move forward here because Ankin Ma'at to TDA Goddess. T the Goddess, probably, Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at to Maribonus. Am I on TikTok? Not really yet, but I'll be doing more, hopefully. Ankin Ma'at to Enoch Bay. Ankin Ma'at to you. You typed a lot. Oh. In Manhattan, Ankin Ma'at to you. Ankin Ma'at, it's hard to read it all really quickly. Ankin Ma'at to Taseti, who is always here. Ankin Ma'at, coming to us from Denver. Spiritual Warriors or Healers by Mfundisi Jehudi Mess is another one of those books that you should have in your repertoire as well. Ankin Ma'at to, I think that's everyone for now. Ankin Ma'at to you all. I'm so happy. I'm so honored that you are here. Let us move forward and do what we are meant to do. That is for us to do what we call the opening of the way. It is the way that our elder, now ancestor, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samaj Se Pata, taught us to actually begin all things of importance. And so I would really like for you to join me in doing it. If you're unfamiliar with it, please, we're going to show you what you should do in just a few moments. If you are a full member of the shrine and you are able, I would love for you to come in and do the opening of the way with us. Please make sure that you're helping the shrine do it. It is not theater. We expect you to get up and do it with us, because it is an important addition to your practice as a practitioner. And I see Curtis Penn says, miss you on Sonnetter. Honestly, I'm going to say to you, there is no reason why I'm not on Sonnetter. It's not because he and I had a falling out or anything like that. I have been busy. That is it. That is it. And so I hope to return and do more with him really soon. And hopefully that will happen. There's so much planned. I planned to do some things ever since January, and now it's April, and I still haven't been on recently. Hopefully that will happen really soon, and we'll work from there. Ankama to um, Col- Colin Archives. I'm sure I'm messing that up. Ankan Ma'at to you. I hope that you are doing well. Let's stand and do the opening of the way. And I see one of our full members who often is generous enough to come in and do it with us is here. I'm talking about none other than Sen Jehuti Mess, who is one of our full members. He comes in and often assists. And I have to say dua to him again for doing that. It's always good to see you coming to us from an area north of New York City, obviously, coming to us from Canada. How are you, dear Sam?
Ankit Ma'at Dua. I'm very well. I had a really good time this morning. Sinet Shenka and Sinet Oye were kind enough to invite me onto Kemetic Adoration. And it was my first time going on there. So I'll be there every Sunday now. But I had a
Wonderful.
good time. So we actually did Sinet Oye did the opening of the way there. So I was really pleased to see that
Wonderful,
event.
wonderful, wonderful. For those of you who are unaware, Sanet Shenka began putting together services for prayer. And it was really important for her to do that, to allow folks who are in the tradition to come together and certainly just to pray together. And so I have to say, I am eternally grateful for her doing that. I know there's several of you that are also involved. It is amazing. She is keeps saying, when are you going to come on? And I always say it'll be soon, and it has not happened, but it will happen. It's just been really, really crazy recently. So, and it's not changing. It's not going to change for another few weeks, but hopefully it will change then. And then all of a sudden you're going to see, oh, Mnetta is doing all kinds of other stuff. What happened? It's going to just be because that thing that I'm trying to do is then incomplete. So, anyway, more on that later. It's good to hear that you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Dua. Dua.
Bob, once again, for coming in, always coming in to assist with the opening of the way. I think some people expect that you're going to do it, so they don't come in. Don't
Oh.
make that an excuse. Come in and assist with him if he's going to come. He's almost always here doing it, and we have to say dua. But the rest of you should come in too. Don't just be hiding in the cut all the time. You know what I mean? Wow. So please go ahead, take it away.
Okay, so Senu, so we're going to be doing this, and this is going to be called the opening of the way ceremony. It was brought into its current configuration or iteration by our shrine elder and now shrine ancestor, Baba Heru Ankra Samaj Sepata. So we say dua to him and to his ka. And we pray that he has calm waters on the celestial boat of Ra. Dua.
Mhm.
So we're going to start off by putting our left foot slightly forward and our right foot slightly back. As Infundishi says, the left foot goes forward so that our feet can trample down evil and our heart can go forward. We're then going to be putting our left hand and right hand forward with our palms extended, with the left slightly forward and the right slightly back. The left giving divine spiritual energy, the right receiving divine spiritual energy. I'm going to turn to the right so just so that you can see. The wrists are bent ever so slightly. They're not broken, but they're just bent ever so slightly in that manner. We're going to be chanting the divine word of everlasting life, which is Ankh, after taking our divine breath. Please, and this is not theater, as our Hemnetter always says, so please stand up. Don't think the Netter can't see you. Okay. All right. Please take your breath. Oh. Ah, Nitrak in bedhead.
On the truck and Bithead,
Nuke in bedhead.
Duke and Bithead,
Ah, Nitrak happy.
on the truck hoppy,
Nuke happy.
Nuke hoppy,
To our winter. Turn to your right. On Nitrak Circuit.
On Nitrak Circuit.
Nuke Circuit.
Nuke Circuit.
On Nitrak Kebsenuf.
On Nitrak Kebsenuf.
Nuke Kebsenuf.
Nuke Kebsenuf.
Tuau enter.
Tuau enter.
Turn to your right. On Nitrak Asset.
On Nitrak Asset.
Nuke Asset.
Nuke Umset.
On Nitrak Umset.
On Nitrak Umset.
Nuke Umset.
Nuke Umset.
Tuau enter.
Tuau enter.
Or turn to your right. On Nitrak Neat.
On Nitrak Neat.
Nuke Neat.
Nuke Neat.
On Nitrak Duamutef.
On Nitrak Duamutef.
Nuke Duamutef.
Duamutef.
Tuau enter.
Enter.
Or turn to the front. On Nitrak Newt.
On Nitrak Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Nuke Newt.
On Nitrak Geb.
On Nitrak Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Tuau enter.
Enter.
On Nitrak Shoe.
On Nitrak Shoe.
Shoe.
Shoe. Shoe.
Shoe. Shoe. Nuke Shoe.
Nuke Shoe.
On Nitrak Tefnut.
On Nitrak Tefnut.
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 Tefnut. Nuke Tefnut. Tuau enter. On Nitrak Pautinteru.
On Nitrak Pautinteru.
Nuke Pautinteru.
Pautinteru.
On Nitrak and Buinteru.
On Nitrak and Buinteru.
Nuke and Buinteru.
Nuke Buinteru.
Tuau enter. Take your divine breath. Oh. Tuau enter.
Dwa for leading us again so ably. Dwa. He always comes in and leads us. Dwa. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you continue to come in to assist. It is helpful. You have all heard me say that Kemetic Ascension is too Hebnetter and Tepi Jabari too focused on me, and I really love when other practitioners come in to do so much in this gathering. So dua to you, dua to you, dua to you.
Wow.
And for those of you who are full members, come on and join and do the opening the way with us. If there's some things you'd like to address or deal with, do those things so that it's not the same format every single time. It would be amazing to be able to allow so many of you to be seen, to be heard here, so that others can hear about what your walk is like. So with that, let me say dua to you once again. Dua to you once again. I'm so honored that you come to assist. And I will see you soon. Let me go ahead and say that it is at this part of our gathering that we go into what we call hessi. And because today is the day that almost all of the world is celebrating Easter, I think an appropriate hessi would be the Assar hessi. That's the hessi that I would like for us to deal with today, the Assar hessi. What am I referring to? You know that Assar is that deity that is connected to the very practice of one becoming an everlasting being. That is who Assar is in our tradition. For thousands of years, the name that more people in the world would have been familiar with regard to resurrection, would have been Assar. And when the Greeks came into Kemet, the name that they began to use more frequently was Osiris. But we are talking about Assar, that individual who is the origin of the idea of resurrection. At least he is the oldest iteration that we can find for that a concept that all of us, when we finally close our eyes with these physical forms, we are not destroyed, that we continue to exist. That entity, that idea was the idea of Asar, who the Greeks called Osiris. So much of what we understand about Asar, so much of what we understand about Jesus are similar. And they're not similar because, hey, this is just a coincidence. The reality is that one of these divine personages predates the other, and I would dare say influence the other ones in manners that are continually uncomfortable for those who are practitioners of the tradition of Christianity. They continue to be uncomfortable with the fact that Assar played such a central role. So, what we will do today is we will hear from the Assar hessi. And what I'm going to do is once again play from Kemetic Meditations, Temple Music Volume 1. We should be able to hear the Assar hessi as done by the Schaeffers. So take a listen to this. It is magnificent. And hopefully, what you will do is you will actually add this hessi to your repertoire as well. Hessi is the way that our Kemetic ancestors galvanized divine energy in harmony. I am truly hoping that you will use hessi as well. So, with that, please take a listen to the Assar hessi. Are you unable to hear it? Are you not hearing the hessi? Uh oh. You should be able to. Why is that happening? Is it? Can you please? I see Juti Maat Ra saying that he can't hear the hessi. Are the rest of you able to hear the hessi? No. So I've just been sitting here jamming on my own. Oh my goodness! Let me make sure. I'm going to share once again, and hopefully, in this share, I'll get it right this time. I apologize. So you all were just sitting there going, I think we're supposed to be hearing something, but we're not hearing anything. Let's do this. There we go. I don't know why it's doing that. Also share system audio. That should help. Okay, let's give this a try. Let's try it again. And hopefully you will be able to clearly hear the Assar hessi. Apologies. Let's see. Let's go back.
Assar never Assar, 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 Eow, 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 Assar never Assar, 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 Eow, 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 Assar never Assar, 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 Eow, 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 Assar never Assar, 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 Eow, 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 Assar never Eow, 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 Assar never Eow, 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 Assar never Eow, 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 Assar never Assar, Assar,
Beautiful. I love how they've mastered this. I mean, listen, if you didn't know that it was just this couple putting out this music, you would think they have a whole band doing this, jamming with the instruments and everything. I'm telling you, Sinette Kenya and Sen Charles are really, really talented. Very talented. And so I know that they're where I figured that when they went to Kemet, they were going to eat them up. They were going to eat them up. So it is really, really amazing to hear how they have rendered this, and so much better than listening to me attempt to sing it. But on the same token, I want you to know that maybe your ability to hold a key is as challenged as mine. That should not stop you from using hessi in your life. And you can listen to this hessi. Just go to any streaming service and type in temple meta. It's a type in Shrine of Ma'at, Kemetic Meditations, Temple Music, Volume 1. That is what you'll type in. Even if you type in Kemetic Meditations, Temple Music, do those things together, or add Shrine of Ma'at to it so you can be sure that you can find it. It is available to you. Just go ahead and grab it so you can listen to it. It is amazing, and I would suggest that you use it. And sing it yourself. Don't just listen. The Assar hessi is amazing. What are we saying? What are they saying? Assar, Assar, Assara. It starts with Iau, 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 Assar Neferu. That means we give praises to you, Assar. Assar the beautiful. Why are we saying he's the beautiful? It's a reference to the fact that according to Kemetic myth, Assar's body did not decay. This fundamental concept that his form was beyond destruction is something that even goes into the Christian tradition. You may know that today, when in the houses of Christianity, there are individuals who have supposedly led divine lives and done good things, particularly also in the Roman Catholic Church. What happens later is that popes sometimes then name them as saints. And the old process for recognizing whether someone should be able to become a saint would be to go back years later and to see if their body had decayed. That was one of the prerequisites to being named a saint. Did that body decay? This comes directly from the Kemetic tradition. We don't hear about Jesus's body not decaying. We know that in the Christian tradition he resurrects, but we don't hear about that idea that decay does not reach him. In fact, even when you go to the story of Lazarus in the Bible, Lazarus' body was said to be quite stinky, quite funky. He was decaying. This idea that sacredness should mean that death does not reach you and it does not lead to decay is clearly a Kemetic echo in the Christian tradition. There are many of them. So we start by saying, we give praise to you, Assar, the beautiful. That's the Iau, 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 Assar Neferu. And then there is Di-Isa Neteru. The first one is Neferu, which means very beautiful. Neteru means very divine or divine. Give, and what we're saying in Di-Isa Neteru is give us, give me in this instance, divine blessing, divine protection, the idea of Sa. And then there is Assar, 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 and that is the concept of the idea that Assar is Assar the Great, Assar the Great. This hessi is so similar to hessi that you would see written, utilized in Kemet in the ancient world. It was created by me. I was the one that created this one. And I just have to say to you that the shrine had been trying for many years, has been creating hessi for our use, because if you're able to add harmony and song to your practice, it assists greatly. That assists you in reaching those heights, in adhering to the call of higher consciousness, even when your subconscious is elsewhere. You can bring it into the focus of the divine. You can just sing something. You ever find yourself singing a song? You ever notice that a song is already in your head, on your tongue, on your lips? That's because harmonizing and chanting can reach you at a place that other traditions cannot, other things cannot. I suggest that you add hessi. Hessi is gospel before gospel was ever spoken. It is the way that our ancient Kemetic ancestors focused on their divine work. So I implore you to join and to use hessi. Okay, let's go. Let's go. I said I wouldn't be here that long today. So what I plan to do is I'm planning that we'll be able to actually share a bit with you, and we'll be able to talk about Easter and its Kemetic origins a bit today. Some of this was in our earlier conversations around Ash Wednesday and the like, and we even talked a bit about Mardi Gras and how it has its origins in ancient Kemet. Without you hearing any of that, today we'll focus a bit on Easter. I'm going to try to not spend a lot of time on the sections of this discussion that we already covered in previous Kemetic Ascensions within the last few weeks. So let's talk about Easter and its Kemetic origins. What are you seeing here? You're seeing an image of Assar on the left, the deity of resurrection, the deity whose presence in heaven allows all of us to enter heaven. I'm using the word heaven. There are many names that the Kemetic people used for the afterlife. Taseket Ma'at, Aaru. There are several. The place for those who practice Ma'at, Taseket Ma'at. That's what that means. Aaru is another name of that place. Think about how important it is for us to recognize that our African ancestors were the first people to describe the idea that resurrection was a thing, that one could actually find their way into the afterlife through good deeds, to good thoughts, to doing those things for the people around you that they need, to assist people, to be a good and decent person in your community. This means that you have access to the afterlife upon your death. This first comes in the form of Assar. And then we see on the right an image, a very European image, maybe not the most European, but definitely a European image of Jesus here, that perhaps we should use the name Yeshua, but just get a sense of the juxtaposition of these images. I want you to recognize that one, in many ways, greatly influenced the other. That the ideas that we see in Christianity around resurrection were first described in the Kemetic tradition and then going into Christianity. I see Shamsu Netra asked a question about Muata Ashby. I've talked about Muata Ashby here a little bit. I don't want to talk about that today, just because we have a lot of heavy lifting to do and virtually a little bit under a half hour or so to do it. I see also that Shamsu Netra is saying all religions have a resurrection theology. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I would challenge you a bit on that. Not every religion has a resurrection theology. And I also want to say to you that when you look at those traditions today that have a resurrection theology, isn't it interesting that so many of them began in the same region? I want you to understand that These concepts have an origin. It's not just a coincidence. These concepts have an origin, and that origin comes from the continent of Africa. Now, I want to say I call it Kemetic, but I would not be surprised. In fact, I think one could make a very good argument that these ideas are even older than Kemet. I don't even have the time to delve into that today. But I would argue that even these ideas of resurrection have their origin even further south on the continent of Africa and came into Kemet and truly flourished in Kemet. That the ideas were greatly, they greatly evolved when they reached Kemet. That the notions and the text and the practices of people who were supposed to be teaching the people this and ensuring that this was part of the tradition, all of that actually is from the Kemetic tradition. So let's move. First off, I want you to know that we continue to see these images. On the left is an illustrated text that is read to young Jewish children today that is meant to explain the narrative around the Passover, around the idea that the Hebrews were being cruelly tortured and forced to work. They were enslaved in Kemet, and then because of their connection to because they are the chosen people, let's describe it that way, and because they had a great leader under the name of Moses, they actually were drawn out of Kemet. That this powerful nation was defeated by their deity. That is the idea. That's the concept. And so if you look at this illustrated book read to children during Passover, notice the Merkutu, the pyramids in the background. Notice that one with the whip is meant to be the cruel Kemetic driver. And then on the left, we see a scene from Family Guy. Those of you who are fans recognize its artistry. And this, once again, is meant to be one of the ways that we see the idea of the Hebrew people being present in Kemet as something that so many people take as a historical fact today. This connects in some way, ways to the concept of the Passover, Pesach. And this leads also to the narrative of Easter. Remember that in the Bible, Jesus, who was a Jew, and his followers were in the midst of Passover. And Passover is that earlier tradition that goes into Christianity, greatly transformed. But notice that these falsities continue. In the Family Guy image, we see the pyramids being built in the background. In the illustrated image from the Passover book for children, we see the pyramids in the background. This is always this idea that these people were forced to build the pyramids of Kemet. And it connects to Passover. Now, some of you have heard me do versions of this on around Easter before, and I'm about to ask you a question that I want to know if you have an understanding of. Take a look at this hospital. It is called Mount Sinai Beth Israel. Mount Sinai Beth Israel. My understanding is that it may be closing, but it is a very prominent hospital in New York City. And you should know it was created by those people who were of the Jewish spiritual tradition. That's what this building is. And I just did a quick search. It officially closed on April 9th of 2025. So the hospital is now closed a year ago almost. And a new facility is opening in its place. I need to go down there and see what they call that space. But understand that when you go to so many of these hospitals that are connected to the Jewish tradition, you will notice something in the doorway. Have you noticed it? You'll see these in the doorway. What is this? If you ever lived in a building that was owned by Jewish people, you'll see these attached. By the way, they are attached sort of diagonally. They're usually placed diagonally. They're not generally upright, although I have seen some that are. Usually they're not drawn this way. What is this called? DZ Ankh says it is a mezuzah. Yes, a mezuzah is what it's called. And sometimes it is called a klaf as well. It contains prayers that are supposed to be a memory connected to the concept of the Passover. What is the Passover? The Passover was that incident in the biblical narrative where these cruelly enslaved Hebrews in Kemet were told that they should save their children, that God was going to be punishing Pharaoh and the Egyptians for their cruel treatment of his chosen people, and the angel of death was going to come into Kemet and kill the firstborn. Kill the firstborn of every family. Of every family. That's what's happening. So how were their homes going to be spared? The idea is that they should take the blood. I believe this is blood of a lamb, by the way. This is one of the reasons why we still eat lamb quite a bit for Easter and during Passover. But you'll actually, in fact, my brother just told my mother that he wanted some of her lamb. He came over here asking for it because he knew that this is where he would get lamb for Easter. But as you look at it, they put the lamb's blood on their lintel, on their doorway, and the angel of death was going to spare them. And we hear that the angel of death kills the firstborn of every person in Kemet. This process, this death is so thorough that you should understand it. The angel of death kills the firstborn of all of the people in Kemet, other than the Hebrews, the firstborn of the people who are actually in Pharaoh's prison. Can you imagine that you lose your child because God has a problem with what Pharaoh is doing? You don't even like the Pharaoh. You aren't even in sync with the Pharaoh. You're in prison. You're in his dungeon, in his jail, and you'll still lose your child. Talk about indiscriminate murder. It even says that the firstborn of the animals of the land were killed too. This was one of the 7 plagues meant to prove to Pharaoh that he should release the Hebrews. And by the way, the thing that's so bizarre about this story is, as you read it, it is quite clear that the Pharaoh might actually agree to it, but it is literally the God of the Hebrews that actually decides to harden the heart of Pharaoh. God does that so that he continues to hold them. Really strange. If you really think that you are supposed to be releasing these people who you're holding in bondage, why in the world would God harden the heart of Pharaoh? Very unusual text. But you should know, in the modern world, a reference to this is the mezuzah that you will see. I'm going to tell you that that story is not historical. That is a mythological story. It is, in some ways, part of the origin of this idea that the Hebrews were mistreated in Kemet, and because of their mistreatment, God forces them to be relieved from this enslavement. And I want you to also understand that this is the origin of Passover, of Pesach, and you should know it is even the origin, in some ways, of the Easter tradition. That before Easter, there was Passover. And even this refers to you, beloved, refers to ancient Africans, refers to your ancestors, and it includes the slaughter of innocents. What sort of deity kills children, kills babies? By the way, when I say this in public, the only pushback I get from those people who are biblically based is, well, you should know that not every child is, not every firstborn is a child. There were adults killed too. That's their argument. And I often say, okay, let's grant that what you are saying is true. We should know that there are definitely some that were babies. You killed them too. How about the offspring of animals in the land? They had to die as well. The offspring of people in Pharaoh's prison, they die as well. This sort of indiscriminate murder, I think, is beneath a divine entity. That's what I believe it is. And we now should recognize that this did not happen. That is not a historical story. That is a mythological story. What you're seeing here is the excavation of just one of the areas that the builders of some of the quote unquote pyramids actually lived. We know where they lived. We know what they got paid. Read that in another way. They were not enslaved. We know that they actually had families. And in one instance, the wife of one of the people who was a worker became so popular that she was kind of like a mayor. We know that sometimes when they disagreed with their workplace, they actually had work stoppages, similar to the strikes that we might see today. We know that they were not enslaved. We know that it is not the Hebrew people that were forced to build those monuments. We know this. But that is the origin of one of the most important concepts. And I'm going to say to you, the Bible doesn't actually say that the Hebrew people were forced to build the pyramids. That is how people have interpreted it. The Bible literally says that they were forced to build these treasure cities and the monuments. But this idea that they built the pyramids is also something that goes into this concept. Look at this poster for a recent movie. I think this is now 12 years ago. I want to say that this movie was 2014, I believe. And it was called Exodus, Gods and Kings. You can see the guy that played Batman in the foreground. Christian Bale. Christian Bale is in the foreground. And he is playing Moses. And then we see another well-known actor in the back. He is playing Ramses. Take a look at these individuals. And you'll even see behind them both an image of a myrrh, of a pyramid. Look at that. Look at that. I see. Thanks for the heads up. I wasn't looking at the chat because I'm also working. I see John Jones says Jabari just makes anything up to give credit to Kemet and doesn't understand he's a pseudo. Okay. I'm showing you sources. Instead of kicking you out, John Jones, listen to what I'm saying and then build an argument against it if that is what you think needs to be done. If you think that just coming in here and causing a ruckus is the right way to do it, then I would ask that you not do it and you will be thrown out. But before that happens, how about you just listen and then engage in a discussion? How about that? That would be, I would say, a more appropriate way to do this. And I have no problem having a discussion with you about it. I started this by saying that it is not smart for us to just give heat and venom to the people that love us. Well, listen, John Jones isn't my family. I don't know him to say that he is part of us or not. But what I am saying is that it would actually be helpful if you disagree for you to explain why you disagree. Let's have a discussion. I'm not here to insult you. And if you are able to have a discussion, I think that it would be edifying. Maybe you'll convince me of something. I doubt that. I've been studying history for literally decades. I doubt that. I'm a historian. I doubt that. But it would be great for you, if you disagree with me, to show me where my error is. That would be great. And if you can't do that, if you can't control yourself and you're just going to argue, then we will kick you out. But other than that, rather than kicking you out, I'd rather have a discussion. It doesn't have to be today. This is not the time to do it. But I want you to listen and then say something. Okay? Okay? I can tell you, you think the Hidden Colors videos are factual also. What does that mean? You should also know that I have been featured in Hidden Colors. But you disagree with them, that's fine. You can disagree with Hidden Colors. You can. But let's not talk about Hidden Colors. Let's talk about what I'm talking about. This is not the place for your debate. This is the place for me to do a presentation, a discussion to people who are Kemetic spiritual practitioners who need to understand the context of one of the most important days of the year to most of the people around them. I'm talking about Easter. So that's what we're doing today. But I am being completely genuine to you, with you, when I'm saying, if you'd like to actually discuss it, let's discuss it. Completely genuine, without venom, without anger, without insults. We can discuss where you think I'm wrong, and I'll discuss where you think you're wrong. Okay? All right, let's move. So when you look at this movie, in the credits, you'll see this scene. Notice you're seeing the quote unquote pyramids being built. Once again, here's the idea that we continue to see, that the pyramids, the Mers, were built by Hebrew slaves. This idea is rampant. I'm going to tell you that we know now at least that is not a factual story. Take a look at what is said about the what do you call it, the cruel treatment of the Hebrews in the Bible. It says, this is from the King James Version. It's Exodus 6-13, chapter 1, verses 6-13. Listen, it says, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. In other words, the more that the Kemetic people treated them poorly, the more the Israelites had more children and became larger and larger. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel, they were greedy because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. and they made lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service, wherein they made them serve, was with rigor. This is the concept that we're actually fighting with them. Please, can you don't argue with John Jones in the chat? I'd like John Jones to just listen. Don't argue with him. Okay? T the goddess, leave him. Let him listen, because I want him to at least have a position to discuss here. If he disagrees, I want him to explain where his disagreement is, calmly and intellectually. So I want him to listen. Don't continue to engage. If he continues to be disruptive, he'll be removed. But I am not one to remove people simply because they disagree. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. Let him explain later. Okay? Okay. So don't engage. If he continues, I'll remove him. But until then, let's just simply I want you to focus on what's being said. Okay? All right. We'll let's do that. Okay. So this is what comes from Exodus. Okay? This is the King James Version, the KJV. This is what is said. So it doesn't actually say in the biblical narrative that they built the pyramids. It doesn't say that. It actually says that they were forced to build the treasure cities. And that is something you should be aware of. But I want you to know that biblical scholars for decades have recognized that these narratives actually are not historical. That is what we should recognize. I want you to look at this book. It's called Biblical History and Israel's Past. Do I still have it here, or did I put it in the other library? I think it's in the other library. It's by Moore and Kelly. And I want you to hear what these biblical scholars are saying about this narrative. Once again, the book is called Biblical History and Israel's Past, the Changing Study of the Bible and History, from 2011. It says here, most histories of ancient Israel no longer consider information about the Egyptian sojourn, the Exodus, and the wilderness wanderings recoverable or even relevant to Israel's emergence. More important is the fact that no clear extra biblical evidence exists for any aspect of the Egyptian sojourn, Exodus, or wilderness wanderings. In other words, the only place we see the description of the Exodus is in the Exodus, in the book of Exodus. That's it. That's it. This is a critically important thing to acknowledge. Trusted biblical scholars no longer argue this. They've been searching for proof, for evidence of a historical event in any manner similar to the Exodus for hundreds of years, and they have found nothing. That is the reality. That is the reality. That there is not archaeological evidence. There is not extra biblical textual evidence. In fact, some portions of this description in the Bible actually are even anachronistic. In other words, there are things that are mentioned that can't fit the time of when it was reported to have occurred. So biblical scholars for an extensive period of time have been saying, guess what? We no longer look at this as a historical story. Why is it that this persists? Because most of the people, all of the people who are still describing this as a historical story are actually not, they are not scholars, and they're not reading the work of scholars. They just read the Bible. That's the problem. That's the problem. And so we need to do more work and study. And John Jones, you should know, in my hood, they say a hit dog gonna holler, right? This discussion is not specifically for you. And because you are one that seems to believe this is a historical narrative, it has triggered you. It's triggered you. And that's fine. It's okay that you're triggered. But I want you to ask yourself, why am I triggered? Why do I need to insult someone who is sitting here and giving me sources for the argument he's making? But because you're being triggered, you're not able to deal with your emotional, intellectual, spiritual I was going to say infertility, that too. Immaturity. That's what the issue is. And so because of that, and because all I'm seeing is you making comments and trying to insult, I'm going to put you on timeout. Okay? I'm not going to kick you out yet because I actually want you to look at the presentation. And if you have disagreements, talk about what is actually being said. And this is not the time for us to hear you. Okay? This is the time for you to listen and then come forward later with your disagreements. I would really welcome you doing that. But for now, what we're going to do is put you on timeout because you're just saying stuff that doesn't make sense. So let's do that. Okay, you've been put in timeout. Let's continue. Here is an article in The Guardian. Here's an article in The Guardian. And it says, Great Pyramid tombs unearth proof workers were not slaves. Take a look at this. Egypt's leading archaeologist says 4,000-year-old burial plots with skeletons expose myth that builders were slaves. Let's continue. Egypt displayed newly discovered tombs more than 4,000 years old, and they said they belonged to people who worked on the Great Pyramids of Giza, supporting evidence that slaves did not build the ancient monuments. The modest 9-foot deep shaft held a dozen skeletons of pyramid builders, perfectly preserved by dry sand, along with jars of beer and bread for the afterlife. The mud brick tombs were uncovered last week near the Giza pyramids, stretching beyond a burial site found in the 1990s and dating to the 4th dynasty on the fringes of present-day capital Cairo. Really important. The Greek historian Herodotus once described the pyramid builders as slaves, creating what Egyptologists say is a myth propagated by Hollywood films. Graves of the builders were first found nearby in 1990 by a tourist. Egypt's chief archaeologist Zahi Hawass says the find shows the workers were paid laborers rather than slaves. When we go further down in the article, look at this. Amihai Mazar, professor of Institute of Archaeology at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, says that myth stemmed from an erroneous claim by the former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin on a visit to Egypt in 1977 that Jews built the pyramids. Mazar, who was a professor of archaeology at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, says no Jews built the pyramids because Jews didn't exist at the period when the pyramids were built. Listen to that. They didn't even exist during that time. Dorothy Rasig, an editor of Biblical Archaeology Review in Washington, D.C., said the idea probably arose from the Old Testament book of Exodus, which says, so the Egyptians enslaved the children of Israel with backbreaking labor. So the Pharaoh put them to work to build buildings. Let's continue. Dieter Wildung, the former director of Berlin's Egyptian Museum, says it's common knowledge in serious Egyptology that the pyramid builders were not slaves. The myth of slaves building pyramids is only the stuff of tabloids in Hollywood. This is important. I want you to understand that this story is false. We do know, however, that there were people from the area around modern-day Israel in the ancient world that did come into Kemet. There are those who would argue today that this group of people is where a much mangled and misinterpreted story of Hebrews in Kemet being forcefully removed from Kemet, actually later, leaving Kemet in large numbers, actually comes from. This is a recreation of a scene from a tomb depicting those people that are often called the Hyksos coming into Kemet. And this image is around 1900 BCE. It's from the 12th dynasty tomb of the official Khnumhotep II under the king Senusret II. By the way, here is the actual image. I don't want to just show you a recreation of it, but here is the actual image from the tomb. From the tomb. It's at a place called Beni Hassan. And it shows you that these people were allowed in because, as it is said, they had a famine in their area. And in fact, that area was under the control of the Kemetic people. That area around Israel, or you might say Palestine today, actually was under the control of the Kemetic people. They called it Sharuhan. Sharuhan. And so when these people were allowed to come into Kemet because of poor climatic circumstances in their homeland at the time, this is actually what happened to them as they left. This is important. And the thing I find so interesting is that these people who are welcomed in eventually become the rulers of Kemet. What do? They take over. They take over. In a few short generations, they are then in control. And one of the native people who is still quite powerful in the south of modern day Egypt, in the southern area of Kemet, actually decides, after a letter that insults him from their ruler, that he should try to expel the foreign people from Kemet, that only native people should rule their land. He is almost immediately killed in battle. And what we end up seeing is that his eldest, by the way, his name is Sekenere Ta'a II. Sekenere Ta'a II. And then his eldest son then is in control of the area that he was in control in, all in southern Kemet, not the entire land. His name is Kamos. After a time where he simply tells the Hyksos that he will respect their authority, he then, I believe this is in year 3 of the time that he's in control of the area, he then leads another battle against these people, the Hyksos. And he is also killed and defeated by the Hyksos. The person who is left is then the mother of Kamos, the wife of the first king, the patriarch, who decided that they should fight. Her name is, well, before I even tell you, let me see how many of you know her name. How many of you know her name? I talk about these people all the time. In public, in my my courses, at Hunter College. What is this woman's name, who then begins to fight the Hyksos because they killed her husband and her eldest son? She does this, by the way, you should know. She has a younger son that is primed to take control of the region that his father was in charge of. But he is too young to do it on its own. So she is the one that is in control until he is old enough. And Sen Jason Holmes very clearly and correctly names her. Her name is Ahotep. Sen Jason Holmes has been studying history. He's passionate about history like I am. So I always enjoy interacting with him on these issues. Her name is Ahotep. Queen Ahotep. She's the one that this is before Queen T, before Queen Hatshepsut, Ahotep. And she literally gets on the horse with an axe and fights the foreign people. She is so successful that She leads this rebellion long enough that her young son is then able to join her, and together they kick the Hyksos out of Kemet. And here goes an image of the son, a man named Amos, King Amos, and his wife, Amos Nefertari, Queen Amos Nefertari. They then kick the Hyksos out of Kemet, and they flee back to their homeland, that place the Kemetic people called Charuhan, that place in modern day Israel or Palestine. And it is there that he says he goes to destroy them. He says he's going to destroy their seed. That is what happened. And there are people who believe that this is how the idea of these people being leaving in large numbers from Kemet came about. That it was not that they were enslaved, that in fact what happened is that they were allowed in, and then they became in control, and there was a rebellion to remove them from power. This is the story that we have archaeological evidence for, that we have outside textual evidence for, not just Kemetic sources, but other sources, that we can actually find bodies of individuals who were involved and letters that were written. The other story that so many of us are more familiar with of the Exodus is one that does not have any of that. This is important. We should understand what actually occurred. Now, is this story the Exodus? You'd have to say no. What do I mean when I say that? It's not certainly not the way that you read it in the Bible, that you'd heard of it before. But having said that, this is the time that people who will probably join that group of people who become the Hebrews are led out of Kemet. This is the closest thing we have to that kind of story. And it's radically different. Radically different. This is what we should know. I think we talked about the quote-unquote pagan origins, the Kemetic origins of Ash Wednesday and Lent. I'm not going to spend time doing that here. Here are the sources. I can talk to you about the words of John Cassian, who was a Christian monk and author of the 4th and 5th centuries, talking about Lent and how it's not actually part of early Christianity. I could read the words of Athanasius, who was a really, really seminal figure in early Christianity from the 4th century. Athanasius is a very important. And he also is one that goes about trying to destroy as much as he can in Kemet. As you look at this, you should know that he is also saying that this idea of Lent, this idea of this 40-day fast, is not something that comes from their tradition. And then I even showed you a source from the Ecclesiastical Observer of 1876 saying that the idea of a Lent that precedes today, Easter, right? That's what happens. People actually go and they give up something for Lent, and that period ends today on Easter, right? I'm sure you know people who did this, who gave up something for Lent. Often people, at the very least, give up eating red meat on Fridays. It's the reason why every single fast food joint that you're aware of had commercials in the last few months that were advertising their chicken. Really interesting. Their fish. Really interesting. It's the reason why you'll see Filet-O-Fish commercials at this time of the year. What do you mean? I thought McDonald's mostly sold Big Macs and quarter pounders. Those are some of their major, major sources of revenue. But during Lent, they also want you to remind you, hey, we have a fish sandwich too. Because we know so many of you are going to be actually observing Lent before Easter. Well, I'm here to tell you, beloved, that Lent ain't Christian. That its origins are, as the Ecclesiastical Observer tells us, the Egyptian Lent was 40 days, and was in commemoration of Osiris. That long before Christians did this, this ceremony occurred. This observation of this period occurred in Kemet. And so that later Christians took it into their traditions. All of this comes from you. We even talked at an earlier time about Mardi Gras, that celebration that comes right before Lent, right? I mean, in many places we call it Carnival these days, right? Right? I'm sure you heard some good soca during this time talking about Carnival. Let me see you wave your hand. Let me see you wave. Come on, I know you heard it during this period. Carnival is a big deal. It's part of the Christian observance of Lent. And there are carnival celebrations, probably at this point, nearly 200 of them all over the world. And some of the most revered, all of the most revered, are ones that involve people of African descent. I'm telling you that's how it is. I'm telling you that's how it is. Probably the one that is most discussed is the carnival in Trinidad. The carnival in Trinidad. I'm telling you. That's what this is. It is part of the Festival of Lent. If you want to go to New Orleans and go celebrate Mardi Gras, this is part of Lent. On the left, you are seeing the celebration of Mardi Gras in New Orleans. On the right, I believe this is in Brooklyn, y'all. Now, the quote-unquote West Indian Day Parade, which occurs on Labor Day in New York City, was shifted. Why? Because this was the time that was most advantageous for people to celebrate it. You know that celebration that's really big on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn is gigantic. It's massive every year. This is part of what used to be Carnival. This is the Afro-Caribbean Carnival in the United States. And by the way, it used to be in Harlem before it was actually in Brooklyn. This is a big deal. And all connected to Mardi Gras, the concept of Mardi Gras, that concept that you're going to have this big celebration right before you go into a solemn period where you give things up. You can drink and party, but then the next day you have Ash Wednesday, and then you take it easy because you're going to think about the death and resurrection of Jesus the Christ. This ain't Christian. It comes from the festivals of Kemet that were focused on the death of Assar and the rebirth, the resurrection of Assar. That's where it comes from. And these festivals all also harken back to that great festival in the temples in the city that today is called Luxor, that the Greeks called Thebes, that the natives actually called for thousands of years Waset, the seat of power. The seat of power. This was the Opet festival. By the way, Opet is nothing more than an English derivation of Ipet. And Ipet is one of the names of a temple. So this is the temple festival. There's a reason why when these large celebrations go past on these 18-wheel trucks, festooned with decorations and flowers and colors of the different countries of the Caribbean and other places. There's a reason why we call them floats, because this entire celebration occurred on water. And the first time it occurred, it was in Kemet. And the river known today as the Nile, that we African call the Hapi River, was the river that these celebrations occurred on. Can you see the boat in the hands of these priests? This is the Opet festival. It was gigantic. And it also included lots of drinking and partying. It also included that. And connected uniquely to the 40-day celebration of the death and resurrection of Assar. Where have you heard this? Pastor didn't tell you this. Here's the secret. Some of your pastors know this. Some of your pastors know this. I know that it's something that people are aware of if they go to Roman Catholic seminary school. I have spoken to some of those priests. I was raised Roman Catholic myself. And sometimes when Christians want to invalidate what I'm saying, they will say, oh, Jabari is just a Roman Catholic. I'm telling you that these celebrations predate Christianity itself. And the oldest, pretty much the oldest Christian church in the world is the one that's still in existence, is the one in Rome. Yes, older than the one in Ethiopia. It is older. This is of critical importance for us to understand where these stories had their origin. When these celebrations came from Kemet and went into the Western world, went into Rome, they were called Navagium Isidis, also called Carnus Navalis. Can't you hear Carnus Navalis, Carnus Navalis, Carnival? Can't you hear that? Can't you hear it? Understand that you are the person that brought this into the world. And let me not even get started on Palm Sunday, which is the week before Easter. In the biblical narrative, it's the time that Jesus makes his journey into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. And the people gather and start waving palm leaves for him. All of this is mythology. And you should know that it also has its origin in the Kemetic narrative. In the ancient world, there is this scrolling, this bit of work that is in an old tomb in Greece. It's called the Alexamenographetio. And you can see a donkey crucified. Can you not see that? Here's a line drawing. Here's a line drawing. Why would a donkey be crucified? Well, the symbol of the donkey was a symbol of the excesses of our ego, of the animal portion of our body. Donkeys are very stubborn animals. They decide what they're going to do. I'll never forget being in Ethiopia and seeing a man coax his donkey to do some work. The donkey was literally moving its head in yes and no, and the man had to bribe the donkey to go do some stuff. They're very intelligent beings, but they don't do what you want them to do. I want you to understand that this idea was supposed to be connected to the fact that our urges actually are so strong, like donkeys. And you'll see that as the Kemetic tradition is then retranslated amongst the Greeks, there is by Apuleius a book talking about, it seems to all be a reference to the mystery system that had its origin in Kemet. It's called Metamorphosis. And supposedly a man who is out of control, that is actually not being his divine self, is transformed into a donkey. And then later in this ceremony that is supposed to allow him to be an initiate of the temple of Ast, they would have said Isis at this time, he is transformed back. He is no longer a donkey, he becomes a human. This is all spiritual imagery for the path, the call to higher consciousness. The idea of the donkey and its use in the biblical narrative is not unintentional. And what about the palm? You know that palm they give away? They were waving palm to Jesus in the narrative. Well, for thousands of years, the image of the palm was associated with eternity. So if Jesus is riding on the back of a donkey and they're waving palms at him, Jesus this divine sacred being is meant to be higher, is meant to be more connected to his spiritual self. That's why he's riding on the back of the form of the stubborn human ego. And people are waving the palm leaves. In ancient Kemet, the palm leaf was held by several deities that were associated with great wisdom and eternity. One of them is Sishat. Sishat holds a palm rib. And you will see this deity of eternity known as Hech. Hech. He actually holds the palm ribs on which he is supposed to etch the image, the days being eternal. You can see him here holding the palm ribs. That's what these are on both sides, by the way, on both ends. And on the bottom, you're seeing a symbol of a frog, Hekek, on top of this symbol of eternity known as the Shen. I want you to get the sense of what is happening here. All of these symbols have their origin in Kemet. And as this powerful, powerful nation was so influential, they later were subsumed by people who were pulling these into Christianity. I want you to understand that. And now let's just get into Easter. With the time we have left, let's talk about Easter. You're seeing an image of one of the ladies who was supposed to meet this person in these shining clothes. Some people say, well, everyone agrees that it was Jesus. Well, some people also say it might have been an angel saying that Jesus had already resurrected. But you can see that this is supposed to be part of the story, the narrative of the resurrection of Jesus. The rock here in this image has already been rolled away from the tomb. This is the story. By the way, I'm going to tell you something interesting about this story that is unusual. You'll even note that as they describe that these ladies met Jesus, or what is the angel of life describing that Jesus is no longer dead at the tomb, it is said at the end that they go away from there scared and they tell no one. If they told no one, first of all, how did they write the story down if they told no one? If they told no one, why do we have the story? If they told no one, why is it that we hear later that they told the men that were gathered, the disciples of Jesus that were gathered? How are these two stories in contradiction? They're in contradiction because they are an echo of an earlier story. And so when you take a fragment of one story and put it with a fragment of another story, and you know that the readers will actually probably be familiar with some of the earlier stories, then you don't always blend them together neatly. And I want you to hear that essentially what is occurring here is the reality that the story of the two ladies at the tomb is an echo of a Kemetic narrative. More on that in a second. I want you to hear that even the name Easter is not Christian. It comes from either Oestra, who is a Nordic goddess of the spring, and of Ishtar, or of Ishtar. I want you to hear that Easter is also astral theology, the concept that the earth dies in the fall and in the winter and then comes into rebirth into the spring. And that we, as elements of the earth, as organs of the earth, as part of the earth, will have our death but not be destroyed by it. That we will resurrect just as the earth resurrects. That's what this story is. That's what this story is. And I'm not even going to go into, because I don't have time, how the bunny is connected to these springtime celebrations in ancient traditions. I'm not even going into it. Don't have the time. But I want you to know that that itself, obviously, everyone understands that's part of the secular traditions of Easter, not of the Christian tradition of Easter, or even the Hebrew tradition of Passover. This is from other peoples. But how did the bunny then become part of the narrative of Easter in the West? How did it become part of it? Because what you're seeing is this tradition has literally grafted upon itself fragments from earlier traditions. The quote unquote pagan people. Well, if those pagans were so evil, why is it that you stealing their stuff? Why? Why are you stealing their stuff if they're evil? All of this, and in fact the most important aspects of it, not just the symbols that that surround things that people are uncomfortable with or things that children play with, but the most fundamental idea that resurrection is possible, that death does not destroy us, that these bodies are nothing more than mortal husks, and that our spirit is greater. Those concepts come directly from Kemet. If they didn't, then why is it that the powerful, most knowledgeable practitioners of the Christian tradition always use Kemetic imagery in trying to dictate, listen to me very carefully, when the resurrection Jesus will be? Take a look at this image on the left. On the right, I'm sorry. You are looking at a tekken in a church in France known as the Church of Saint Sulpice. I have been to this church myself. The Church of Saint Sulpice. And in the back, there's this very tall tekken, who what the Greeks would call an obelisk, with an orb on the top. I would argue that orb is a reference to the sun. Why the heck would this be in a church? Particularly when the Catechism of the Catholic Church in paragraph 2116 says very clearly all forms of divination are to be rejected. Recourse to Satan or demons, conjuring up the dead, or other practices falsely supposed to unveil the future. Consulting horoscopes, astrology, listen to that one, astrology, palm reading, interpretation of omens and lots, the phenomena of clairvoyance, and recourse to mediums all concede a desire of power over time, history, and in last analysis, other human beings, as well as a wish to conciliate hidden powers. They contradict the honor, respect, and loving fear that we owe God alone. What are they saying here? You had better not look to the heavens to understand what is occurring here on earth. It is evil. It is the recourse to Satan or demons. But don't they do it? Don't those most intelligent, most schooled, most trained, most read in practitioners of the Christian tradition do exactly that? Why is there a tekken in the back of this church? Well, I want you to know that the tekken is there. I don't have the other slide here. The tekken is here because the priest of the church actually wait for a shaft of sun to come through a hole in the stained glass of the church, and it follows a path on a line on the floor. And when the sun illuminates this at the top of the tekken, they will know when Easter should be. You ever notice that Easter is not the same day every year? Why not? You know why? because the bishops, the priests, have to actually consult the heavens to know when it's going to be. And now that we have calendars that are so precisely attuned to for us to be able to understand the movement of the heavens, the stars, now we're able to tell you where Easter will be. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. Listen to me again. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon, which comes directly after the first spring equinox. Easter is uniquely connected to the spring. That's why it's named Easter. You're telling me that they study the heavens to know when Easter, the most important day of the entire Christian calendar, will be? And they told you must not look up at the heavens, beloved. The reason why they don't want you to look at the heavens is the same reason why Christianity has become the primary tradition in the world today. Because the African traditions were not about giving all of your agency, all of your energy to a practitioner. The African traditions were about how you should connect to these spiritual traditions yourself. It was not necessary for you to utilize a practitioner to do so. These are traditions that are connected to the divine as above, so below. Anyone schooled enough at studying the divine as above, so below should be able to know what to do. That's what this is. And in the 3rd and 4th century of the Common Era, powerful men decided they were going to take these things into their own hands and empower themselves. That's what we see at the Council of Nicaea, for example, that was convened by Constantine. What we are seeing is that Constantine, a Roman emperor, is saying, we need to decide what exactly we're going to say is Christianity. And we're going to use that form of Christianity to empower ourselves. That is what this narrative is. That's what it is, family. We're going to make it entirely literal so that you're not going to be looking at these stories as a meditation on what you should do. That Jesus is not a character in a larger story that you are now living through as you draw breath. That Jesus is a historical dude that did something at one point in time. And that the role of women is completely removed. That's what has happened. And it's not just at the Nomen, as they call it, in the Church of St. Sulpice, but how many of you have actually seen this? You should know that this is the center of the Roman Catholic Church. This is known as St. Peter's Square. By the way, it's so interesting to me that they call it St. Peter's Square, but it's actually a circle. Do you notice that there are these lines on the ground there, that in the center of the circle is a tekken, and it is not just a tekken, it is not just an obelisk that they created for the square, they literally took it from Kemet. It is an authentic tekken. And the bishops of the church would use this to actually look at how the sun moves, to be able to tell them which day they would celebrate the resurrection of their deity. Are you telling me that they took a Kemetic artifact? A Kemetic artifact that is in fact supposed to be a reference for the missing member of the resurrected Kemetic deity Assar, the missing penis. Let's be clear about it. And they use it to dictate when the resurrection, I know you hear it now, the resurrection, I know you hear it now. of their deity would be? This is what this is. Understand that they know and they hope that you never will, beloved. Understand that this is the way that powerful Europeans stole the very spiritual understanding and power away from the oldest people on the planet, the African, and took within them the power to control the hearts and minds of billions of people. The only place where the Roman Catholic Church is growing in the world today is in Latin America and in Africa. It is receding everywhere else. But they are still in control. You have work to do, beloved. Once you understand that they know, now you must do different. And understand that as we are looking at the divine as above, so below, I really believe as we talk about this story as a crucifixion of this Savior, what we're really seeing is something that is absolutely apparent. It is before our minds. We see it. And then we tell our brains we didn't see it. Notice how Jesus is often depicted with a halo around his head. I remember as a child, I said, it's the sun on his head. And the teacher told me it's a halo. And I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute. Isn't the halo the sun? Yes, it is. He is a solar deity. Let's be clear. And then often the cross is depicted on the sun, which is behind his head. What are they telling you? At 4 times a year, it's seen through our vantage point on the earth that the sun does something interesting. There are 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices, and they are equidistant. What does that mean? There's an equal number of days between them. The sun is hung on a cross. I'm sorry, beloved. You thought I meant the sun, S-O-N. I mean the sun, S-U-N. This is all astrotheology. It's all astrotheology. And we have forgotten it. And it's not just because we were negligent and we forgot it. It's actually because there are individuals who fought to make sure that you would not know who you were and know what your traditions are. In fact, those people who are so angry about African traditions today, usually the people that attack me today are usually people of African descent. I guarantee you the person that was arguing later and making the most noise, an empty can with a rock in it will make the most noise. I guarantee you that that person was a person of African descent. We want to remove ourselves from the forefront of knowing because we've been taught that way. Carter Woodson said, you do not have to force a man to a back door if you train him that is all that he is worthy of. And if there is no back door, he will make it. I am paraphrasing. But I want you to know that is what is occurring. And I skipped over something that Abutsa Shot said. She was looking for a source. There is a book on Constantine, and I'm searching for it here. It is by a man, if I remember, his name is Dudley, and I don't see it here. It describes the life of Constantine and the Council of Nicaea, where they go and they deal with what is called the Arian conspiracy. There was a teacher from northern Africa known as Arius who was teaching one thing, and Constantine wanted them all to teach the same thing. This is where orthodoxy occurs. That's what this is. I'm not suggesting to you that this entire thing is created full force in at the Council of Nicaea. I'm saying that there were a multiplicity of Christian understandings in early Christianity, and that with the Council of Nicaea, there is a greater movement towards orthodoxy. We're going to all believe and teach this. It's exactly why the version of the Nicene Creed is still spoken in every church, every Roman Catholic church, every Sunday. That's why. That creed that we call the Apostles' Creed when I was a child is actually a version of the Nicene Creed that was developed by those bishops along with the Emperor Constantine. Did you know that? This is where the orthodoxy occurs. And that creed is something about, we believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of the heavens and earth. We all say the same thing that they developed in the 4th century of the Common Era, along with an emperor that would go ahead and kill his wife, boil his son to death, and kill many people and not be baptized until he was on his deathbed because he had some killing to do. That's where this comes from. That's what its origin is. That's what its origin is. History of the First Council of Nice, 325 AD by Dean Dudley. Yes, that is the name of the book. And I don't have it here. I think it's in the Harlem, at the Harlem Co-op. I'm in between places. You know, I'm in the house in Queens that I'm taking over from my family, and I also have a co-op in Harlem. So you'll see me between those two places for a Kemetic Ascension, depending on what is going on. But I think I already moved it there. You know, I would show it to you if I could. But I want you to understand that all of this is the divine as above, so below, that has been misrepresented as a literal historical story, which was meant to empower men. Sinette Cortia, thank you so much for putting up the $sign Ma'at Shrine for the Cash App. Please, thank you for doing that, because I'm going to tell you, as I'm cooking, I forget to do it myself. By the way, I want you to just look at this. I don't have the time to even talk about it, but I want you to recognize that as you look at the 3 pyramids on the Giza Plateau and you look above, you're going to see that our Kemetic ancestors designed those to be evocative of the stars in the Orion's belt. And this all goes back to an understanding of the birth of the Savior. You're seeing it here. This is about birth and death. More on this in Christmas. When we get to Christmas, I'll talk more about this. This being that the Kemetic people called Sahu, that today we call Orion. I want you to recognize where this comes from. I want you to understand that this is where this comes from. And as you look at this, notice this image of Jesus with his hands held high and the halo on his head. And these 2 feminine angels are meant to be evocative of the 2 ladies, the 2 Marys, both with the name Mary, both with the name Mary, who are noticing him come from the tomb. When you see this, you can't unsee that this author, this Renaissance painter, Karl Heinrich, you must believe that he must have been aware of this earlier image that comes from the Papyrus of Ani, which is the resurrection of the soul. Look at the hands. By the way, the hands are the symbol of the soul, of the Ka in the Kemetic tradition. Notice the sun on top of the Ankh. Notice that you see at the bottom is a Jed column, the symbol of resurrection. This is resurrection of the soul of Assar into eternal life. Notice the symbol of the Ankh with the arms coming from it. That is the soul going into the sun. The resurrection, the very rebirth, you gotta see this when you look at it. Can you not see that as the sun rises, the sun S-U-N, there are those that want you to understand that it was the sun S-O-N that rose? Your African ancestors told this story as the sun S-O-N with the understanding that they were really talking about a larger theological, astrotheological drama of the sun S-U-N. Notice the two ladies. By the way, each of them were known by the name Murray, the doubly beloved. So the Murray is then reduced to Mary. Why are there two at the tomb? Why is that so important to tell this story when the ladies run off and they don't tell anybody, according to the Christian narrative? They recognize the actual resurrection of Jesus. Well, I'm going to tell you that the Murray, Mur means love in the Kemetic tradition, recognize the resurrection of the soul of Assar at dawn. Notice that they're the baboons here with the symbol of adoration. The baboon at dawn recognizes the sun, similar to the way that the rooster recognizes the sun. That's what you're seeing here. And it's also in a rocky area. Did you notice it's in a rocky area? Do you see this symbol here of the two mountains and the rocky area they're standing on? These two ladies, Ast on the left, Inbethet on the right. Do you know that there was, I remember when I had these conversations with people who think I'm just freestyling and making things up. Someone said to me, are you saying that the early Hebrews and the early Christians read the Kemetic language? It was not necessary for them to. This drama with the two Mary, who were the two virgins, by the way, recognizing the resurrection of the soul, was actually a great drama that occurred in an area of the temple that was called the Hall of the Appearings. This is when the soul of Assar was resurrected. The Hall of the Appearings. There was a ceremony, a drama, and in fact, there is even a papyrus that gives instructions on how to do the drama. Did you know this? It says that you have to find two virgins, two ladies whose wombs have not been opened, and write their names on their arms. Have them be beautiful ladies. And they will stand there and recognize that the soul of Assar has returned. That's why this story in the Bible, a curious story of the two Marys, are there. Why include a story where the ladies don't tell anybody? Because they're trying to rewrite a story that is ancient, that is thousands of years older. That's what we must understand, beloved. Okay. That's what we must understand, beloved. That's what we must understand. So here is the description of the ladies at the tomb in Mark 16, 1-8. When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome had brought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning on the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. At the rising of the sun. At the rising of the sun. This has all been in front of you, and they've told you not to read it in its full context. And they said amongst themselves, who shall roll away the stone from the door of the sepulchre? By the way, are you telling me they did not know that there was a stone there? They were going there. They didn't even know who was going to roll the stone away. Does that make sense? Or are they trying to tell you something? That this is an echo of an earlier story. We continue. And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. He saith unto them, Be not affrighted. Ye seek Jesus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way. Tell his disciples and Peter that he goeth before you to Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said unto you. Listen to this. Your job is to go and tell the men that Jesus was resurrected. That's your job. Go tell the disciples that you came to the tomb and they're not there. But what happens in passage 8? And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. Why would you tell us a story when supposedly they didn't tell nobody? By the way, how did you write it down if they didn't tell nobody? Family, you should understand there's a reason why they had to include this story. Because it is an echo of an earlier tradition. They had to include it. Why do they have to both be named Mary? By the way, the name in those days would probably be Miriam. Why did they have to include the name Mary? Because this is an echo of the Mary. Look at this section. This is from the Lamentations of Austin Imbetet. By the way, these are sources. This is from the Papyrus Berlin 3008. By the way, it's not from Berlin, Germany. That's just where it is. And in order to catalog it, they gave it a number. So you can search for either Lamentations of Austin Imbetet. You know, family, that you're going to have to look for Isis and Nephthys. Those are the Greek names. I'm not going to use those names here. On the Papyrus Berlin 3008. Now listen to this story. Listen. Recitation of blessings made by the two sisters in the house of Assar Kenti Amenti. By the way, what is Kenti Amenti? It means the first of the Westerners. What the heck does that mean? According to the Kemetic people, the West were where those people who died went. Philosophically, you were born in the East and you laid in the West. If he is the first of the Westerners, that means that he's the first person to go into the afterlife. You can't get there before him. That's what first means. It is Assar that allows us to have resurrection. Let's continue. Recitation of blessings made by the two sisters in the house Assar Kenti Amenti, the great Neter, Lord of Abydos, should be written as Abtu. That's the real name. In the 4th month of inundation, day 25, when the same is done in every place of Assar, at every feast of his. I'm telling you that this was written by priests, telling you when this ceremony should be done, when there should be this great drama should be done in every place, every temple to Assar, so that everyone in the land would be familiar with it. Did they have to know the Kemetic language? No. There was a drama that was being done. Most people in Kemet couldn't read. Most people in the world, reading was new when Kemet was a nation. Only 5% of the Kemetic people would have been able to read. How did they know the stories? How did the rest of the world, they were largely illiterate. How did they know? Because there were these great dramas that were done. They would have been able to see it. How many of you saw the movie Sinners? A bunch of you. Did you read the script? No, you didn't read the script. But how you know the story? How you know the movie if you can't read the script? That's how ridiculous the argument that they're making to me is. Those Hebrews couldn't read the text. They didn't need to. It was being put on the screen. Let's continue. To bless his Ba, steady is his body. Exalt his Ka. Give breath to the nose of him who lacks breath. To soothe the heart of Isis and Nephthys, place Horus in his father's house and give life, stability, and dominion to Assar. Listen to what we're using the Greek words. I'm citing this directly. But we're giving him life, stability, and dominion. What are we saying? Life, Jed, Was. Ankh, Jed, Was. That's what they're giving him. And then you hear, this is what the woman playing Asta is supposed to say. Ah speaks. She says, come to your house. Come to your house. You of Iunu, come to your house. Your foes are not. Long, long have I not seen you. My heart mourns you. My eyes seek you. I search for you to see you. Nebuchadnezzar says, Nebuchadnezzar speaks, she says, O good king, come to your house. Please your heart. All your foes are not. Your two sisters beside you guard your bier. Bier is where the funeral bier. It's the bed, the funeral bed. Call for you in tears. Turn around on your bier. See the women. Speak to us, King our Lord. Drive all pain from our hearts. Your court of gods and men beholds you. Show them your face, King our Lord. Our faces live by seeing your face. Anecharak, show me your face. We say that in the opening of the way. Let's continue. I want you to understand that then they give you instructions on who is supposed to do this. These are the instructions to the priest about who is supposed to speak these words, who's supposed to play the roles. Listen to the instructions. It says, now when this is recited, the people... Now, when this is recited, give me a moment here. Getting a, there we go. Oh, what's happening? Oh boy. Getting an urgent message, and I missed it. Well, as you look at this, I want you to understand that what you are seeing is the fact that the people in this great drama, are meant to be those individuals who give you the narrative by seeing the narrative. That's what this is supposed to be. And in doing this, you're supposed to understand that that the people will learn it. So listen to what is said again. It says, now when this is recited, the place is to be completely secluded, not seen and not heard by anyone except the chief lector priest and the sem priest. One shall bring two women with beautiful bodies. Listen to this. They shall be made to sit on the ground at the main portal at the hall of appearings. On their arms shall be written the names of Austin in Bedhet. Jars of faience filled with water shall be placed in their right hands. Offering loads made in Menepher in their left hands, and their faces shall be bowed. To be done in the 3rd hour of the day, also in the 8th hour of the day. You shall not slack on reciting the book in the hour of the festival. They're telling you when it should be done. And by the way, let me just say this. The translation here is women with beautiful bodies. But the actual term that is used in the Kemetic language is women whose wombs have not been opened. Women who've not been opened. Women who have not been opened. These are women who have not given birth. In this sense, they would have been virgins. I want you to understand what you're seeing. I am showing you with sources that the idea of the resurrection of the deity is one that comes from the African tradition, much earlier than we see it in the traditions of the West, much earlier than we see it in the Christian tradition. You have to see this and understand that this was taken from our tradition, beloved, our tradition, Kemetic. Sinet Cortia says, them teeth-it. Yes, them teeth-it. Them teeth-it. And they think that you're not going to recognize the signature, the name, the etching of your African ancestors on these concepts. That's what they want you to do. So as we sit here today on the day that is known as Easter, what should it mean to you? Is it really about the resurrection of Jesus? Or is it about something more? You shouldn't take away from this that instead of Jesus, there's Assar, and then go into your Bible with some whiteout, if they even sell such a thing anymore, and slowly erase everything that says Jesus and write Assar, and now we're complete. You must understand that these traditions that were so powerful were practiced in a way that were radically different than the ones today. And all they are doing is copying from a book that you authored from your from your heart. If you are going to be a powerful practitioner, this must mean something to you. And one of the things that you should understand is that in the Christian tradition, Jesus is a guy that did something at one time, and you should be impressed by it. In the Kemetic tradition, Assar is you, and that this is your journey. And at every step of the journey, you are one of the individuals in the journey. Maybe you're Ast, maybe you're Inbethet, maybe you're Assar, maybe you're Heru, that this is all you. This is fundamentally different from the way that these stories, these great divine dramas, have been issued in the West in comparison to the way that they are issued in ancient Africa. What are you going to do about it, beloved? Are you simply going to have some great Easter lamb today? Well, I would argue that what you should do is love your family. Love them because they love and support you. But share with them that these traditions have more ancient sources, that they come from you, African, and that we no longer have to imitate the imitator who is poorly imitating us, that we can go back and fetch it, that we can reclaim the traditions in their full intensity. Can you imagine that these people control the world with a tenth of the knowledge? What happens if you have 100% of it? What happens if you have 50% of it? Why, you'd be a bad, bad being. I am saying that it is time for you to Sankofa. It's time for you to go back and get it and become who you are meant to be. Our ancestors, those who were forced onto ships of blood and taken to places that were not home, where they were abused for over 400 years by people who were seeking to control them, and not just control them, to control the very meter, the very tongue, the very understanding of knowledge and of being in the entire world. I'm saying to you that those ancestors who recognized that they were in the most benighted, subjected position in the world dreamed for you to draw breath. They dreamed for you to reclaim their traditions and to return to the forefront of human civilization. You have work to do today, beloved. Today is meant to be about rebirth, and perhaps it's about your rebirth. Perhaps it's about the rebirth of African traditions and a knowledge of the ancients. I'm hoping that this description, with its sources, will give you the energy and the knowledge to continue to reclaim the names of our lofty and dusky ancestors. It is what they expect from us and what we must do. Well, that, let me say, the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Shemin Ma'at, go forth in divine balance. I know I went late. It is almost 3 p.m. I'm hoping that the rest of your day will be powerful and that you'll be able to do what we're meant to do. And for all of those who came in afterwards, I see you. I mur you. I see Shesmu Patah Aman is here. Ankan Ma'at to you. I saw one of our priests. I glanced up and I saw Hemnetter Jamar is here and others. If I did not call your name, please chalk it up to my aging eyes and my brain and not to my ob and my heart. I mur you. I hope that you will go and do the work that you're meant to do today, so that our ancestors will finally be put in the glorious place, basking in the light of the sun. With that, I say, Amasuan Panter, Sauksumithran Panter, Autuaura Maketi Paherura. Give yourself for the one most high. Keep yourself daily for the divine, and do it tomorrow just as you did it today. Twa Winter. Thank you to the divine. We will speak to you soon. Do your work.